Good afternoon. Hi there. How are you? My name is Pat Campbell, radio talk show host from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I am joined by Rollo Tomasi, the rational male. And you are watching, great, the screen went blank on me, The Rational Male 101. This is episode 38.
Yep.
And we're going to be dealing with women's egos in the age of social media. Rollo, how you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Tremendous. In the words of an old friend of mine.
This is going to be a fun one.
It is. Here, I want to start with a little story from this past week, okay? So I had some pictures professionally taken that are going to go up on the radio station's website, I along with a bunch of other people. And they sent me like 14 proofs, and they said, pick 2 you like, and we're going to fix them for you. So I picked 2 out of the group. I wasn't really happy with any of them. But then they sent the 2 back to me, and they said, which one do you like? Well, I looked at the pictures. It didn't look anything like me. They changed everything about me. First of all, I had shaved that morning, so I wouldn't have a 5 o'clock shadow. They gave me whiskers. They filled in my eyebrows. Apparently, they aren't thick enough. Any of the, like my veins in my head, they took all the veins out. They took the veins out of my arm. They took my pecs and my shoulders out. They gave me a flat, like just washboard kind of look. I looked thinner. Oh, they also made me, apparently I'm too dark. They made me lighter. Okay. They made my teeth whiter. Like I need whiter teeth right now. Right. And I'm there like, what the F did you do to me? I showed the pictures to people, and even my daughter goes, is that somebody pretending to be you? And I'm there, is that a Pat Campbell, I don't know, clone or somebody trying to be like you? It was so bad. My producer, Carly, said I looked like Captain Stubby from The Love Boat. It was just sad.
It trimmed you down that much? Because I mean, you're a pretty stocky guy, man.
It was ridiculous. And she goes, which one do you like? And I said, neither. I said, I want to look like me, right? So when I got talking with these people, what it turns out is they're using, because there's female on-air personalities in the cluster, they're using the filters that they would use on social media. And this is, got me to thinking, I said, well, that's why chicks don't look anything like they do on Instagram or Facebook, or you pick the venue. It's because their pictures are so altered. I said, look, I'm not pretty. I'm never going to be pretty. I said, but I want to look like me. I want to look like I look in real life, not some, modified version of me. And she goes, oh, we're sorry. We thought you wanted us to do this. And I said, no, just make me look like me. But that got me to thinking about, the age we're living in. You've talked about this before. Women have an overinflated sense of self-worth,
yes.
Right? Like their values must be, and it's you see it on Facebook, on Instagram all the time, where they'll post a picture. It always struck me as weird because when a woman puts a picture up, it's all these other girls commenting on it, and it's not the way they really look in real life. Yeah. But they get this inflated sense of self-worth that bears no resemblance to the real world. So, and I want to tie that into that picture. Do you have that picture that we can put up?
Oh God, yes. I want to say before I put this up, I apologize. I hope you have. I sincerely hope you have not been eating before I post this up. But it's this whole thing about being able to share screens on StreamYard now is sort of. I'm beginning to see that it's a blessing and a curse. Okay. And let's see, where did that go? Okay, here we go. I bear no responsibility for this.
Graphic content straight ahead.
Yes. So there you have it. That's the one, right?
Right. Okay. So and this is the lady who I'm just going to be kind here. This is awful. But part of the reason I wanted to show this to people is I'll bet you if you asked her where she is on a scale of 1 to 10, she'd give herself a solid 7. And the reality is, in the real world, she's nowhere on the scale. In fact, it's a negative. You owe me. Can you read the sign that she's holding? Can you read that up, please?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me go to the thing here. It says, I need Okay. I'm not sure. I'm still in the back of my head. I'm wondering if this is actually for real, because how she has this written on here, it looks too perfect. It almost looks like them, but okay. But this is not outside of the realm of believability. So it says, I need, because you have to, let me give you a little bit of pretext here, is that there was a trend, and it was right around, I think, 2012, where people would take images, they would take pictures and write, I need feminism because, and this is not, I actually have a few old essays where I did this with guys who were doing the same thing, but the whole thing was centered on I need feminism because, and then you write in whatever. So that's what this is. So I need feminism because I should be able to wear what I want and not be afraid of the possibility to get raped.
Okay. First of all, you stand a better chance of being, I don't know, run over by a herd of water buffalo than you do of being raped. Nobody in the right mind, of course, not rapists aren't necessarily in the right mind, but I mean, it's just the idea that somebody would even want her in that way is just ridiculous. But I put the picture up there because it is an extreme. Okay.
Right.
Obviously, no sense of modesty there. I mean, even in a muumuu, she's not going to look all that good, right? But women have this inflated sense, and this is most women, especially on social media. Okay, they have this inflated sense of self-worth that bears no resemblance to reality. And part of this, and one of the reasons we want to bring this up is because of this. Let's say somebody, I don't know, I'm just going to pick an arbitrary number. Let's say somebody's a 4 or 5, but they've convinced themselves that they're a 9. They now think that they're entitled to something that technically isn't even in their realm. And they act, even a 4 or a 5 is going to act like I'm a 10 and I deserve to be treated like a 10. This sense of entitlement that comes along with it. So I want you to talk about those two things, the inflated sense of self-worth and the entitlement that comes with it.
Okay, so here's the first part. I think that people need to understand that when I'm talking about sexual market value, a lot of women hate that term. They hate to think that their personal self or the way that they feel about something or the way they feel about themselves or the way they feel about other men or women is in some way lessened or dehumanized because we make comparisons, because we act like when guys say, oh, she's an HB8 or she's an HB9 or whatever, that's HB used to stand for hot babe or whatever back in the old pickup artist days. So it's sort of a holdover from that. But I'm tending to use that term in terms of like sexual market value. So if you got a woman who's a 5, that's like a mid between 0 and 10 or 1 and 10. So when you do that rating, I think a lot of people are so used to this touchy-feely feels before reels. You talk about with Dr. Piper. We're in that era right now where it's always feels before reels. So a lot of people who have been brought up by the village over the last like 3 or 4 generations, they think that when you quantify things and when you say this person is a 5, on the scale of attractiveness, and this person is an 8. First of all, it's subjective because like on the Tomasi scale, it might be different than the Campbell scale for whatever, but we know what we're talking about. We have a frame of reference when we say, well, when you're all that rating system is a way to get onto deeper concepts. But because we live in the touchy-feely era, women think that that's in some way dehumanizing, and it's dehumanizing to them. So like a woman who looks like this one that we just showed in the picture here that I won't bring up again. Where does she, on my scale, she would be lucky to be a 1 or a 2 would be pushing it for her. On my scale. And I think I'm being too kind. Yeah, exactly. But so we see that we can quantify that. And I think that on some sort of level of consciousness, women understand where they fit because women, as far as sexual market value is concerned. But so as a defense for that, what women do is they conflate their sexual market value with their personal worth, with their personal value, like their value as a human being. Right. So you have a woman that looks like that, and maybe she's so smart she can cure cancer. Right. Or maybe maybe she's Mother Teresa and she goes and she helps the poor in distant countries, and she, cures bubonic plague somewhere. Right. So she has a personal worth to her as a human being. That's the hard part to get people to make those comparisons. There's a woman, a very famous feminist, and I think maybe she was an actress or something. Her name was Robin Korth, and she's very famous for being like a single 69 or 68, 69-year-old woman who is still technically a spinster and dating younger men. And she writes these columns about how horrible it is that men still judge her based on her looks. And I've written like at least 2 essays about Robin Korth. And the reason I wrote those is because I identified this pairing of an objective sexual market value with the personal value of the human being. Because if we attack that, if we say that, because women tend to make their sexual market value or how good they look, they have a real difficult time separating that, because if they can conflate that, if they can say that you only think I'm a 6, that means you think that my whole being or my value as a human being is only on a 6, when I think it's a 12, or some. And so there's this defense mechanism that comes from conflating those two. So I wanted to throw that out there first. Let me everything we're going to talk about today, we're talking about sexual market value. We're not talking about how you feel about yourself as a human being.
Let me throw this side note in, okay? We are all judged by our appearance, physical appearance.
Yes.
The way I'm dressed right now, okay, I'm going to get one response from the public. If I'm dressed in a suit and a tie, I'm going to get a very different response if I go into a business, because then I'm going to be a somebody. Right now, I don't know. I guess I'm just a scary talk show host, okay? But everybody is judged on their physical appearance. It's a reality. It's one of the hard truths of life. But when you bring it up with women, they act like, oh no, you're applying a standard to me that you don't apply to yourself. Are you kidding me? Women judge men on their appearance all the time. You've talked about the jawline, any number of things, physical characteristics they're looking at. That's the way we size people up.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've heard this before, because it's been going on for forever. Never judge a book by its cover.
Right?
No, absolutely. If you're going to create a book and you're going to put it on the shelf and you want people to buy and be interested in the story that's in that book, you want to put an attractive cover on that book so people will pick it up off the shelf and they will read it. So there's something about the cover of the book that should illustrate what's inside of that book, so people know what they're getting. And even if you don't think that way, if you think people should, appreciate you for the, so what's on the inside that counts. And I'm not saying it doesn't, but what's on the outside also counts. What's on the outside makes you want to get to know what's on the inside.
All right, let me throw this one at you too. Judging a book by its cover. I'm not even going to mention any names, but I used to have, and of course it's changed with time here, some preconceived ideas with ink. And I met a guy who was heavily tatted, a lot of body modification, piercings, whatever the gauging in the ears, all that kind of stuff. And I made a lot of pre-assumptions based on his physical appearance. Turned out to be one of the greatest guys. I mean, solid conservative, super smart dude. And if I had simply gone by the looks, I would have never found out who he was. So that can't be your sole arbiter of how you judge a person. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I 100% agree with you, because I think that and I actually was talking about this on Rule Zero yesterday, because we were doing the looks show. And in there, we were talking about how there is a need for congruency, and I'm just going to put this in the realm of women, but men do this as well. Is like, if we see someone dressed a certain way, we expect their behavior, or we expect the story of them to be congruent with the way that they look. So if you got a guy like Jack Donovan is a really good example of this. Really, really buff, really ripped dude. And if you look at him like as the guy who's like tatted up and he's out in the woods and he's, howling at the moon by firelight, you think one thing of this guy, like he's very feral but if you get to know the guy, he's like the most intelligent, intellectual, well-adjusted guy you will ever want to meet. And you can learn a lot from this guy, but there's a congruency there where we don't we want him to be a certain way, but we don't realize that maybe he's something that's different. And I'm sure somebody here in the comments or after we're done with this, somebody's going to say, well, Rolo dresses like a 14-year-old boy. Well, the reason why that kind of throws people off, or my voice throws people off, is because they'll listen to someone like Sam will read my books and they'll expect that that's like the voice of the rational male, or they'll read the rational male and they will think of these things and they will expect me to be something like very professorial. And then they'll hear my voice or they'll see me and they'll look at like I'm some kid from Huntington Beach, California, And
by the way, in full disclosure, the first time I spoke to you, I thought you were going to sound like Sam. And I'm there like, wait a minute. This doesn't sound like, because I got the audio book.
Professorial. Yeah, that wasn't me. Yeah, that's why I did that. I mean, that's why, and well, of course, Sam has the golden voice. So that, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I wanted to use Sam, but one of those is, you know, I'm not saying that in the future I won't read a book. I probably will. I might read my fourth book myself, but I wanted that, you know, to go along with it because I'm creating something. You know, I want people to enjoy listening to it as well. But yeah, I mean, so you've got this congruency between what we think someone should be according to the way they look. So when guys will tell me like it's all about looks, you know, that's the only thing that matters to women. It's like, yeah, but has to be a congruency between those looks, because if you've got a guy who is like a bodybuilder and then you put him in like a slingshot bikini and you put like lipstick on him, that's incongruent with what you're expecting that guy to be. He's not the you know, the hot you know, fireman in the fireman calendar. He's somebody who is incongruent with the way that people expect him to be.
When I started getting into lifting, especially powerlifting, you know, there's preconceived ideas that go with gym rats, that you're a meathead, right? And then when somebody finds out, oh, he's a math teacher, well, that doesn't line up. You know, when you say you're a teacher, they're going to assume I'm a football coach, history teacher, phys ed teacher.
Right.
You teach math, and they go, oh,
yeah, exactly. So there's that. I'm glad we're throwing that out here in the beginning, because there's a certain if you present a certain image, we expect there to be some congruency between what you're presenting and what people are expecting to get when they see it. So when I'm dealing with guys who are like divorced men in their middle age, like just say like 45 to 55 years old, their number one complaint to me is that when they go online and they date women off of OkCupid, or they meet someone off of Tinder, that the real person that they meet at the bar or wherever they decide, you know, the restaurant, whatever, it never lines up with who it is that you know, that they saw in those pictures. And they're kind of like put off. Was it Mike was telling me it's called fat fishing, right? It's like you take pictures from a certain angle and it makes you look thinner, or you just take, you know, headshots and those things. That's not even like, that's old school right now. And when you and I were talking about discussing this topic, I was talking to my daughter right now, and there's an app right now called, was it Facetune, I think is what it's called. And it's basically Photoshop, but it's a suite of filters and tools that young women can use to make themselves thinner, make themselves, and it's a professional grade, like if you want to make your eyebrows lift a little bit, it knows where your eyebrows are, so you lift the eyebrows. Right. Or if you want to make the lips thinner, if you want to make them fatter, if you want to make the face more angular, if you want to tan, if you want to make your boobs bigger, if you want to, you know, it's beyond the Instagram filters like you were talking about right now. I think, and this is the comparison that I wanted to make, because when you told me the story about the new set of shots that you didn't think looked like you, and what they're doing is they're taking those shots and they're running them through the filters that young women would use to make you look good. Well, there's a certain aesthetic that women are using that don't apply to Pat Campbell. They don't apply to, like you were telling me, like you shaved and they wanted to give you like a 5 o'clock shadow or something. And so what I think is interesting is, as we get into technology expanding the capacity to fake all of these things, like a deep fake, where I'll talk about deep fakes here in a minute, but this is part of that deep fake thing, is like you don't even have to, like women don't have to take pictures at a certain angle anymore. You just throw it in a Facetune and suddenly you're by the
way, that software that they ran me through, it did make me more, it made me effeminate. In fact, my program director said, "Is that your profile pic for Grindr?" He said, "Because that looks like the gay you." And you know what else they changed the color of my eyes. They changed the freaking color of my eyes.
Oh wow! Well, so there's that Facetune. There's also that one app right now that makes you look older. And I'm like, I'm like, no, I don't want to have anything to do with that one. I'm okay with how I look right now. But we're getting to the point where we can deep fake things. We can deep fake. I was just watching, I think it was was it Sargon? Yeah, Sargon of Akkad was talking about the new deepfake program that will emulate your voice. And so what they're doing is they're running like somebody, the most obvious one and easiest one to do, Jordan Peterson, because he has a very distinct way of, Kermit the Frog, right? He has a very distinct way of talking. And it's gotten to the point now where they can run my voice through the emulator and make it sound as if I said whatever it is that they want to type into that little, insert, text.
We are living in an age where you can no longer believe what your eyes see or what your ears hear. Somebody did that with me. Because everybody has distinct speech patterns.
Yes.
And by taking stuff that I had said before, they were able to splice stuff together to make me say things I never said. But if you didn't know, if you didn't have the technical knowledge to know what was going on there, you would swear to God Pat Campbell said that.
I know. I had somebody and some nefarious person in my DMs came up to me and said, "Hey, Jordan Peterson just mentioned you by name in this video right here," and it was like Rollo needs to grow up or something like that. It sounded just like it. Fortunately, I had already seen that video by Sargon of Akkad, and so I blocked the dude because like people will try to do that. They will try to trick you into believing something because it's still new technology. But we're getting to the point right now where you can't believe anything that you see online. And I also know that we're getting to a point where right now where people will be able to put your face onto certain videos. So if like there's a video of a guy robbing a liquor store, he could put your face, my face on the guy who's robbing the liquor store and say, "Oh, look, Rollo's a thief," those kind of things. So it's getting to the point where it's so believable that we can now do those things. Right. So I wanted to, again, I still feel like we're prefacing here because all of this leads to women creating a false sense of self according to what their digital consciousness really is.
Before you go on that path, let me throw this at you too, because along with that, there is this almost neurotic at times self-doubt where women, and it happened with my oldest daughter. I think she was in 6th grade. Some girl said something to her and she carried that, up until however old she is now. And it's like, somebody said something about her and she's been bent out of shape ever since then. And you got to stop and think about this, because I saw this on Dr. Phil one day. They had a lady on who was convinced that she was fat and ugly. Well, why do you think that way? Did your parents ever tell you that? Did anybody write? Girl, and it was like very similar to my daughter's story. A girl in 7th grade told her that, right? And so, but stop and think about this. How many, Dr. Phil goes, this is not healthy. It's not normal. But over and over and over again, she's repeated that to herself so many times that she now believes I am fat, I am ugly, and physically her appearance now match. They showed a picture of what she looked like when she was in grade school, right? And she might have been a little chubby, but now it's an excuse to fit that image that somebody fed to her. And women are very self-conscious, so much more so than guys, about their physical appearance. Do I look fat? Does this make my butt look big? Is there something wrong with my face? It's almost where they're obsessed with their own personal appearance to a point where it's not healthy.
Yes. And let's backtrack a little bit there. Like just what I was saying before, but how women conflate sexual market value with their personal value. So the sexual market value where you and I might, from the most objective perspective, not to hurt anybody's feelings, but we still have to have a baseline. So we understand what we're talking about with respect to, like, this is an SMV5, this is an SMV7. Women hate that because of exactly what you're talking about here is when men put a quantifiable, factor on that crosses over into their self-worth, because their self-worth is intimately tied with how they look. So, and if you don't believe me, then all you've got to do is look at how many filters there are on Instagram, how many women are on Instagram, why do we have an app like Facetune right now that is specifically designed to cater to that? Why would we have something like that if that were not the case? Well, you're gonna say, well, men do it too. Well, not to the same degree as women, because women's sense of self is intimately wrapped up in how they look. Because remember, attention is the coin of the realm in girl world. So whether that's and the highest form of attention, of course, is from men, but they also still get attention from the collective, from the sisterhood, from the women that are in their peer group. So that is something that they take very, very seriously, to the point where it might become sort of a psychological you know, I don't want to say distortion, but like some sort of psychological issue that they have. That's why you get bulimia. That's why you get anorexia. Those are conditions that you don't see in other cultures in the world. You only see them in Western cultures. Why is that? And why do we see that almost uniquely amongst women? Because they tie the way that they look with their sense of self. That's why it's hard for you for guys to say, look, just because I'm saying you're a 7 doesn't mean you're a bad person. Well, women don't know that because on their hindbrain, they understand that their worth is their sexual market value and their personal worth are intimately tied to each other. So if their sexual market value is a 7, that's like me saying your overall worth as a human being is only a 7. And that's not, at least from my perspective, that's not what I'm trying to say. I need to have a base of reference to talk to. But that's where we're going with this right now, is why do we see Instagram models? Why do we see the rise of, women can make 6-figure incomes off of YouTube, off of Instagram, off of Snapchat, because they look a certain way. And they don't even necessarily have to look like a supermodel. They just have to, in some way, overcome the deficit of sexual availability. So if a woman is maybe like 10 pounds overweight, if she presents the idea that she's more sexually available, whether that's on Snapchat or Instagram, then what that's going to do is it's going to inflate her ego that much more, because now she thinks that it's not the sexual access that she's providing, it's actually how she looks. So when you get women who are who only see themselves in their mind's eye through an Instagram filter or through Facetune, or they see themselves through any of these like new technologies that says this, in their mind, it puts this image of self into their head that this is what you actually look like. You actually look like all of those pictures that you put on your Instagram. You actually look like all of the images that you're selling, that men are paying for on Snapchat. And even if they're not Snapchat, obviously not all women are Snapchat models, but even that perception, that false perception of self transfers over into the next generation of women. So they'll see other women doing this and they'll say, wow, this is empowering. And we already give women that empowerment narrative so that they think that they need to be empowered by the way that they look. You have another generation that's coming up saying, well, look, so-and-so did it on Instagram and look how great she looks. Well, if you meet her friend, her Instagram model friend, she doesn't actually look like that in face to face. So what I see happening anyways is I see women sort of retreating into this isolation of their digital self. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about here is we've now developed, as humankind, we have developed 3 consciousnesses. One of those is the consciousness that I'm talking to you right now, face to face. Where I don't have any makeup on, man. So this is what I look like, and we're relating to one another.
You told me you were wearing just foundation today.
Yeah, and
foundation.
My daughter got it. I've got to. I got the 5 o'clock show. But so there's that in real time consciousness. There's the consciousness where we have that internal conversation with ourselves when we're alone with our thoughts. That's another kind of consciousness. So there's the kind that we share with people face to face. There's the consciousness of our own internal personal conversations. And then there is our digital consciousness. And this is really something that's been coming up over the last, like, say, 20 years, right? Since the rise of the internet. And so we tend to which one of those consciousnesses is going to be the predominant one that helps us define what our identity is. And I think that right now for women, that digital consciousness, and for a lot of guys who tend to be like on the spectrum, or they're like these gamma male kind of guys, or there's incels, their digital consciousness is what is defining their overall identity. So when a woman goes and she takes that picture using those apps and she trims herself down and she really honestly thinks that that's the way she looks, she thinks that she's actually SMV 8.
She's convinced herself. She's deluded into thinking that. Right.
And so she convinces herself, when in actuality, maybe she's a SMV 6. When she gets into the real world, when reality sort of smashes into that identity that she's created for herself with her digital consciousness, then that's something that she has to deal with. And a lot of women are not prepared for that. So what do they do to deal with that? Well, they retreat back into that digital consciousness. And so now, oh, well, you know, they said I was a 6 in real life. They come back and, don't worry, girl, you're an 8. And, oh, I'm an 8. I guess that means I deserve guys who are anywhere between an 8 and a 9 or a 10. Those are the guys that I should be with. And so you have this distorted, inflated, well, ego, of course, but this distorted understanding of, I'm loath to use the word ego because there's more attached to that than there is, but their sense of self and the identity that they draw from that sense of self is developed through their digital consciousness. So when guys like that I coach, the guys who are 45, 55 years old, and they meet the girl in person, and they can't believe that the guy doesn't want to get to know them. Well, it's false advertising. It's like, it's a loss leader, right? Oh, this is what I really look like. No, it's not what you really look like. And now I think more guys are leaving digital online dating as a result of that. And I think that's actually good news for guys, because I think really guys need to develop themselves.
Two things on that. First of all, women are drawn to that because they can control that image. Okay? They can control that image. I'm going to throw something out here, and it'll make some people upset, but that's okay. I personally believe that every woman over the age of 35 should do this probably once every couple of months. Late at night, after the makeup's off, the kids are in bed, whatever, stand in front of a full-length mirror naked. Mm-hmm. Just look at yourself from head to toe. You know, you don't have to put yourself on that scale, physically on that scale. Where are you? Even for people your age, let alone competing against somebody that's 21 years old. You know, where realistically, not the Facebook, you know, the glamorized, altered picture where everybody says, "Oh, you're the hottest thing on earth." Really, what do you look like? And ask yourself, who would want that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Who would that attract? Okay. And by the way, I think guys should do the same thing too.
Yeah,
just
definitely.
Keep the ego in check. You know, you're not all that. You need to lose a little bit around the waist. You know, might want to start working the legs. Any number of things.
I think that should be your baseline, your standard for how you think of yourself.
To be honest with yourself. And let's say a lady's a 5 or a 6. Okay. Mm-hmm. And when she does the self-evaluation, honey, if you've got an 8 or a 9 guy that's hot on you, that wants you, you ought to be like a pit bull clamping down on a little kid. You ought to hold on to him as hard as you can, because that's as good as it's ever going to get. But so because of this craziness that has been induced in women, they think, no, I can get that 10. There's something there. It's almost like the hypergamy. There's something better than this. When the reality is, this is the best it's ever going to get, and you better grab it while you can.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why we see this rise in women pushing out their sexual market value. They're pushing out their what we would call the wall, right? So women delaying marriage further and further and further. Now, I think in popular media, we like to think that, well, women are more invested in their careers now, and they're really trying to develop their businesses and all that. It's like, no, if you go and you look at the statistics and you look at the research that's been done for women who are freezing their eggs, it's not because they have like this they're careerist women. It's because they haven't met the right guy. It's because they think they can get that. Because right now, women, you know, the beta buck side of hypergamy is already taken care of. So why not try to hold out as long as you possibly can to get Mr. Right, to get the guy that you think that you deserve? And I was just talking to Dalrock about this. It has infiltrated itself in this mentality, anyways, has infiltrated itself into Christian culture right now.
Oh, absolutely.
So now it's like, you got 50 some odd year old women who are now finally getting married and like, oh, well, I needed to wait and for God to give me the guy that he had preordained for me, like in the stars or something like that. And now here he is. It's like, no, you waited it out. And she's I forget the name of I don't know. I don't think it's Beth Moore. It's another women's ministry pastoress. And she was saying something to the effect of, she's trying to teach women of a younger generation, hold out, wait for the guy that God has, you know, ordained and is waiting, you know, for you. And it's like, no, what that is that's a secular understanding of intersexual dynamics for women that has worked its way into a religious context. So now it's not you need to focus on your career you don't get married until God gives you the guy that you're supposed to be with. Don't settle. And I know I think you probably talked about this with Taylor Burrows or somebody else, where there's a series of books right now by female authors saying don't settle, and then there's the other ones who say do settle. And the ones that say do settle, like, Mr. Good Enough, find the guy that's just good enough. Or even Sheryl Sandberg. Sheryl Sandberg says, have fun with the bad boys and the commitment phobic boys and, rock band drummer or whatever, that guy, have fun with those in your party years. And then when you get to be 29, 31 years old, find an equal partner. It's the same thing. It's the same narrative. Yeah. And so you have women who are still pushing that out, but I think that we're going to see the age of first marriage get even older and older, because women believe that they are entitled to a guy who is at least their equal or greater than they are with respect to sexual market value. But the problem is you got a woman who thinks she's an 8 and she's actually a 6, but because she thinks she's an 8, only a guy who's a 9 or a 10 is going to do for her. And so that's why she's waiting out for Mr. Perfect, the guy that has to come along. There's no realistic sense of self. There's no, like you were saying, they should get in front of the mirror, turn on the harsh fluorescent lights, look at yourself and go, I'm a 6. I really am a 6. And you know what? Maybe that's, maybe I can do better. Maybe I can get into the gym and get up to a 7 or something, but have a realistic sense of self. And then once you have that realistic sense of self, then decide what kind of guy is appropriate for you and what guy's not.
And by the way, when it comes to the women, if you've got a guy, a solid guy, hopefully an alpha, that loves you despite any imperfections. We've all got imperfections. I mean, guys and girls. Despite that, lock onto him. I mean, because that it's like the media has tricked women in. First of all, they lied to them. You can have it all. No, you can't have it all.
No,
you cannot have it all at the same time. How many women do we have to see, come out saying, "Gee, I wish I got a do-over. I'm 60 years old, never got married, never have kids. Now I'm lonely." You can't have it all. You could maybe have it all, but not at the same time. Okay. And something's going to have to be sacrificed in the process. And now they've duped people, especially with the social media and the, these enhanced images, into thinking not only can they have it, they deserve it. They're entitled. You are entitled to the very best. You go, girl. You go, girl. And they buy this crap.
Right. Because once again, it's this inflated sense of self, this inflated sense of sexual market value, that's what they actually deserve, right? So you have women who see themselves, and the other thing I should say is that this is reinforced by their online friends, by their digital consciousness, by the women, and other women don't have your best interests in mind. They're not going to tell you, you know what, girl, it would help you if you actually lost about 50 pounds. They're not going to say that to you, because that is against the narrative. It's against that fempowerment narrative. And you want to know why they hold out, is because they believe that they are entitled to it and they deserve it. Okay, why? How do we get to that point? How do we get to the point where they think that they're entitled to a guy who is at or above their sexual market value? Well, it's because since she was 5 years old, the blue pill for girls has said you can be anything, you can do anything, you hold out until Prince Charming comes along, and you deserve that. Once he gets there, that's just par for the course. There's nothing, and like you were saying in when we were talking about doing this episode, you were also saying, why is it so hard for women to appreciate men? Why is it so hard for women to say thank you? Why is it so hard for women to compliment men? And part of that is because they've never been taught to. They've never been taught to say, hey, thank you very much. I've had more, I think in my lifetime, I've probably had more men say, I appreciate you. Thank you very much for what you've done, rather than women have ever said anything like that before. And I think maybe there's two parts to that. The first one is it's the fempowerment narrative. That's easy because women are taught not to do that, because doing anything for the express pleasure of a man is verboten. You're not supposed to do that if you want to be a strong, independent woman. But then there's also the side of it, and I'm sure women will hear this, or they'll watch this. Hopefully they get to this point in the video and they will watch this and they'll say, well, I'm afraid to do that, because if I give a compliment to a man, that means he's going to take it as an IOI, like an indicator of interest. Like he's going to overestimate if I say, hey, that's a nice shirt. Oh, she wants to have sex with me. right? And maybe rightly so for most of the guys who are like betas. They're not going to take that compliment as just a compliment.
Yeah.
They're going to take it as like, hey, want to go get coffee?
Right.
And I get that, and that's always an easy out for women. But I think more so it's because women are taught that they are entitled. Like in a woman's life, in Western culture, she is entitled to Mr. Right. She's entitled to her soulmate. She's entitled to the guy who's going to come in and take care of not just the sex side of things, but also the provisioning side. Let
me give you a real quick story here. The attitude of gratitude. Okay. So I went to a party. It was like a fall beer bash kind of dig at a family we knew back in Pennsylvania. Sweeney was the name of the family. Big old family. They had this beautiful, ranch and outdoor barn and all sorts of stuff. And there were hay rides and things like that. And anyway, I went out there, and I didn't go with my brothers and sisters. I arrived on my own a little bit later. And I was probably, 27 at the time. Mm-hmm. And but I went up to the bar, and there was a lady behind the bar. It turns out she was one of my sister's teachers in grade school. And I asked her, I said, can I please have a beer? And so she brings me up the beer, and I said, thank you. And she goes, you must be a Campbell. I said, huh? She says, you must be a Campbell. I said, why? She goes, you're the only ones to say please and thank you. And because that's just something like when I send stuff to Carly, my producer, in the morning, whether it's for audio or to print something, I always say please. And when she does it, I always say thank you. Mm-hmm. Doesn't cost me a thing. Okay. Mm-hmm. But what it builds up, in a relationship with people, and they remember you for that, because most people don't do that. Yeah. And I think, like what you're saying, women are actually encouraged not to do it.
Yes.
By modern day society.
Yeah. And
because then I owe you something, or
I think that, okay, so there's the owe you part of it, but I think primarily it's because women are taught that they should, if they do something for the pleasure of a man, it in some way puts them beneath the man, that it in some way is an affront to the idea that they are strong, independent women. And what are they independent from? They're independent from men. They're independent from, they don't care about the opinions of men. In fact, women will say that all the time. I don't care what you think, that's going to be their reflexive default. So I think one of the reasons why women have such a hard time with me when I go on your show and we talk about stuff is I'm expressing things as an opinion, yes, but also as what I'm observing. And so for me to even observe those things, or to say, here's what I'm seeing going on, they instantly think of that as me just expressing my opinion. Like, well, why do you think that way? Well, it's because if you in any way expose an objective truth about women that is unflattering, they have to default that to an opinion. So it's a feeling thing rather than a factual thing. And I like to think of myself as a factual absolutist, right? Where I'm going to say, okay, here's the truth, ladies. Here's the numbers. What do you think about that? Just me presenting those numbers means that I'm an asshole. It means that I'm a misogynist just for bringing that topic up. And
but so there's certain words that you use that trigger my lady listeners. For example, when you say women are going to go feral, because now, here's the thing. Here's the thing with women. You got to understand this. You know it too. Women read things into what you say. Okay. I'm very upfront. If I don't like you, I'm going to tell you to your face. I'm not one of these guys that implies things or, slip something in, a little dig at somebody. I don't do that. I'm straight at you. If I got a problem with you, I'm going to tell you that. But women, it's just, there's something hardwired in their DNA. They will, I've never had a guy come back to me and go, well, did you mean this? Or were you saying this guy? I get it all the time from women. It doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter what age. I get it all the time because it's the way they're programmed. They're reading things into what I said that I didn't say, don't mean, don't intend, didn't imply.
Yeah. And why is that? But it's because women communicate differently than men. For women, it's subcommunications, it's innuendos, it's not saying what you actually mean, but trying to imply certain things. And so and really, that's just how they communicate. Women have a different facility with communication than men do. So that's why you're going to run into that. But as far as like expressing like appreciation, I've always wanted to ask you this too. Is like, do you maybe it's just me, but do you find that women, like if you sneeze, is it mostly men who say Gesundheit or God bless you, or whatever? Or do you hear women do that more? Because I don't hear any women say that anymore.
Well, it depends where I am. Growing up in my house, I would hear that you'd hear that from everybody. My dad might throw in a little sign of the cross for you too. Just a bonus. God bless you. No, you really need it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I understand
I think
it's courtesy,
it's more age related too. For example, Carly, my producer, Drew, our traffic manager, both of them would say that, and that's sort of the norm. I think you hear it less probably from those under 40 than you do those over 40. I've never really broke it down to just the sexes though.
I think a lot of people, like when you're noticing people who are appreciative, or they're saying something that's thank you, whatever. I honestly think it's a lost art. I think it's really weird because like when I go into like say Chick-fil-A or something, and and you say thank you, every time they'll say my pleasure.
Yeah.
Whoa. And I'm remembering that.
That's in a whole different.
I understand, but like when you go into like some of these restaurants, if you go to Firehouse Subs, or you go into like Chick-fil-A, or you go into some of these, they'll say, "Welcome to Firehouse." Hey, welcome to, they tell them to do that because it's so rare right now that somebody is going to welcome you into some place and treat you as if you're like some sort of friend, because they want to get that repeat customer. So they have to teach that, and that's what I was getting at. Is like, do we teach that now? Do we teach appreciation for men or women at this stage? I think women have to be careful of that.
You mentioned that we've got a series. It's a chain, Quick Trip. It's sort of a gas station convenience store. Started here in Oklahoma. It's 11 other states. The minute you walk in there, you're someplace different, because whoever it is working behind, welcome to Quick Trip. And the way they count money, they count money faster than bank tellers. I don't know what it is. They send them to a special school or what, but it's all about manners. Please, thank you, opening the door. Here's the thing. Manners used to be the norm. Nowadays, they're so rare that when somebody does that for you, it's like all of a sudden, wow, this is different.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I maybe it's a regional thing. Maybe it's something else. When I moved from like Nevada to Orlando, there was something about like the Southern hospitality, I guess, that was I was kind of like, wow, this is something interesting.
Absolutely. I moved from the Northeast down to Orlando, and then over here to Oklahoma.
I think you have to teach that.
But it's cultural too. There was so much nicer. People are easier to talk to, and up north, in particular Northeast, it's cold and they're standoffish. Yeah, exactly. What else do we have going on? I think we pretty much covered the solipsism side. Well, actually, we haven't really covered solipsism. I think maybe that's okay.
Where we need to go.
Explain what that is first of all.
I definitely want to get to Aubrey Huff's tweet because it really went viral. We'll get to that. Now, explain
what solipsism is, and explain how that differs from narcissism.
Okay, so here's the deal, and if anybody who has read my stuff, I refer to this quite a bit. I've got a couple of sort of flagship posts that are just called Solipsism 1 and Solipsism 2. I use the term solipsism because it's more like a philosophical thing. When you use a term like narcissism and you say, oh, all women are narcissists. Like, well, that's not entirely true. But second of all, it's kind of got that negative connotation because it's like, oh, I'm just in love with myself. And there are some women who are definitely in love with themselves. But what I wanted to get at is that I would say all women, not all women are narcissists, but all women are solipsistic, and we have to be solipsistic because they have to think about themselves and they have to think about their survival. Because if they didn't, then in a chaotic world in our ancestral past, if they weren't self-concerned, like if that wasn't something that is like hardwired into their consciousness, it would have been selected out. Okay, and what I mean by that is, when it's instead of narcissism, solipsism is this idea that the world is going on outside of your consciousness is not you, that there's anything that is outside your consciousness is meant to serve your inner consciousness. Whereas for narcissism, it's just this really deep kind of like self-love that love of self that goes certainly over that. So solipsism is, I like to use that term because I don't really think it's as negative as narcissism.
By the way, I watched a video interview of Carl Jung, probably late 1950s, talking about that very thing yesterday. And they were asking him, when did you first become aware? He said at the age of 11.
Yeah, I really need to. I know a lot of people hit me up about Jung, and they wonder why I'm kind of down on Jung. I think a lot of his stuff is very metaphysical and very woo woo magical thinking, and I'm gonna save that for another podcast at some point. But as far as like understanding yourself, women have this innate self-concern. So when I talk about how guys are taught not to make themselves their mental point of origin when they're little kids, they have to, that sort of has to be like trained out of them so that they become good, useful servants for women and womankind, because that's all their teachers are for most of their lives is females. There's an idea that little boys actually make themselves their own mental point of origin because that is a survival trait. They have to be a little bit solipsistic because they have to be self-important enough to want to get the best things that they can get for their own survival. Well, for boys, we train that out of them. For girls, we amplify that. So with what we were just talking about a minute ago with respect to the fempowerment movement, where we have all of these special dispensations for women. We got Title IX. There's more women in college right now. We can't have Boy Scouts, so we only have girls in the Boy Scouts, and now there's Girl Scouts and there's Girl Boy Scouts, that kind of thing. Where we have for the last, I would say, at least the last 45 years, we have made it so women are we amplify their mental point of origin. So anything that is outside themselves is passed through that filter of solipsism, which is, how does this affect me? How am I going to be, how is whatever this guy is over here, how is that affecting me? How is that affecting my child as well? Because the child ends up becoming an extension of that woman. When we talk about the cult of the child, that comes, the root of the cult of the child comes from female solipsism. The kid still exists outside of herself, but it's also a part of herself that she can use to maintain her sense of self. So when we talk about solipsism, what I mean, and people will think that I'm being very negative when I talk about this, but it's not a negative thing. It's just that women have to be this way in order to survive because they're the weaker sex. Evolutionarily speaking, they're the weaker sex. So they have evolved under conditions that their lives could be taken away from them at any moment, or the men in their lives could be taken away from them at any moment. The children that they have can be killed at any moment. And so how do you survive all of this chaotic world without dying yourself or going crazy? Well, evolution selected for women who are solipsistic. And we could talk about the war bride. We should probably do that sometime. We should talk about the war brides dynamic. That's where the war brides dynamic comes in that women get over men a whole lot faster than men get over women, because evolutionarily, women had to develop psychological traits so that if a warring tribe came in and wiped out all the men folk and took away all the women, that they had to find some way to go on with life after, their husbands or fathers, their
survival mechanism.
There was a survival mechanism. So that's why this is a real deep topic to get into here, but that's one of the reasons why women developed a sense of solipsism, because they had to. It was a survival trait for them to do that. Now, flash forward to 2019, where we have Instagram and Snapchat, and we have guys laying in the gutter to take pictures of their girlfriends.
You gonna play that?
We'll play that here in just a second. But that sense of solipsism leads women into other things. Like, it certainly leads them into conflating sexual market value with their personal value. It's because anything that's on the outside, if I say you're a 6 or you're 7, that is something from the outside that is intruding into her world, into how does this affect me? This is when women talk, when I talk about something, you've seen this happen before on your show. When I talk about a general idea, when I talk about an objective truth or a fact or something that's usually an unflattering fact of women, what's the first thing they do?
Women will personalize it. He's talking about me.
I'm not like
this is different.
I, me. And so what they do, and this is the easiest way to describe solipsism, is that when you describe a general truth about women to women, the first line of defense is, that's not me. Those women are different. That woman is like, if when I talk about how women like to get with guys who are violent criminals in the prison system,
right?
That's not all women. Those women are just damaged. Like, No, but it's only women that are doing that. So as soon as you say something that is globally true, that is unflattering to women, or even if it's flattering, really, if I say, well, women have a greater facility for communication, women will go, yeah, that's me. That makes so much sense. Boy, I'm glad that Rollo Tomasi guy is great. And then I say, all women are hypergamous. Not me. I'm not hypergamous. Here's 10 different examples, anecdotal examples of how I'm not hypergamous. And that's the first inclination of women, is to personalize it. And it's that personalization that is part of women's innate solipsism. So that's the best way I can really kind of describe what solipsism is. Do you want to, should we move on to the video here?
Oh, absolutely. So set this up before you play it.
Okay. What this is let me get over here to the share screen. And I don't think I need to put the audio on this, but I'm just going to share. This was a tweet that my friend Aubrey Huff put out. He's got his own podcast. Aubrey's what used to be a professional baseball player, and now he's sort of making a name for himself in podcasting here.
So there's this young woman who's standing in front of a great church, Gothic kind of style church, and her boyfriend's laying down in the street taking pictures for her to put up on Instagram to satisfy, I guess, other guys, right?
Yeah. Well, let's look at this really quick. This is all the guy was doing. It's pretty easy to see what's going on here.
By the way, play it all the way through.
Yeah, I will.
She has got lovely steeples. I love those steeples, don't you?
So I guess this is like a famous church or something in Spain. Right. Somebody was telling me that that's what this was. So you have this guy who's laying in the gutter and he's taking pictures. And we've talked about this. I think you and I have talked about this as well, but I've passed this back and forth with the guys on Rule Zero and Rich Cooper. This is what's called an Instagram boyfriend. And this is the trend right now, is like guys willing to go the extra mile to get that perfect shot for their girlfriend, or not even their girl. It doesn't have to be their girlfriend. It can be like a girlfriend and her girlfriends, or it can be just any random woman. There's this, let me just stop that real quick. There's this need for like, and mostly this is beta men doing this, but there's this need for self-abasement. And that's what we're looking at here the reflexive response of these guys is to self-abase, is to lay in the gutter to take the right picture. And there were some other ones. I'm going to work on a post about this, because I've got so many examples of this right now. When Rich Cooper was just in Mexico, and he was taking pictures of guys doing this.
I know. He was sitting at a bar. He was sitting at a bar. Yeah.
So many men were doing this that he's taking pictures of them, and it's like just a dozen examples of guys doing this. And then when they don't take the right picture,
right. Go gets upset.
Right picture, go back and do it again.
What kind of guy, seriously, is going to take pictures of his girlfriend, alleged girlfriend, for her to put up onto Instagram to attract other men? I mean, you may as well be her pimp, right?
Well, that tweet has right now it's at 1.3 million views of that.
1.4 just went up.
So we're almost at 1.5 million views on that. Right. And I probably wouldn't even know about it if he hadn't just tagged me in the thing. And there's like about 560 some odd comments about it. And I would say 90% of those comments are coming from women and beta men who are saying something to the effect that, well, that's going the extra mile. That's proving that you care. That's saying, that's telling the woman that you'll do anything for her. And it's like, yeah, you're right. It is telling her that you'll do anything for her. But what we have been talking about for most of this show right now is how women's solipsism affects their idea or their sense of self, what they're all about.
Right.
Like why is the guy laying in the gutter taking pictures of this woman at that time, at that moment in time right there? He is a peripheral. He is an accessory to her ego, an accessory to her sense of self, like where she's at, what she's doing right now. She's not doing that for him. She's doing that for all of her followers on Instagram. She's doing that for all of her followers on Facebook or whatever it is. Now, women will take me to the task. They'll say, well, maybe you don't know that. Maybe she's taking it for family pictures, and she's going to take that and she's going to put it on Facebook so mom and dad can see where she is.
Maybe.
And then that might be true. But here's the thing is, and I can't really argue this case very well on Twitter because there's too many idiots on Twitter.
Oh,
but
white knights are coming out.
And white knights will come out of the woodwork because they see that. They see the guy laying in the gutter and they go, man, I wish I had the opportunity to do that, because if I could do that, surely I'd get laid. Surely she'll appreciate what were we just saying? Women have a very stunted capacity to appreciate men right now. Do you think she actually appreciated that guy? Do you think she goes, you know what, honey? You took some really good pictures of me today. I'm going to go wear the sexy lingerie and we're going to go back to the hotel and we're going to, have marathon sex. You think that's what happened? I don't think that's what happened. That's what happened. But that's the fantasy that we're told. That's the distractions that we're fed from women who want to say, well, you don't know that. Maybe she's just doing that for, because taking pictures of her makes her happy. And I go, okay, why does she like to have her picture taken? What is it about? Like, was it Goldman? Goldman has Goldman Unleashed has a whole book dedicated to photography game, right, and how you can use a camera to effectively use game and get women into bed.
It's amazing to see him in action.
Yeah, exactly. So women like to, and Goldman will back me up on this, women like to have their pictures taken. They like to have that because they have a different sense of self with respect to what they look like, because they know that attention is the coin of the realm in girl world. And they know that other women who are going to see those pictures are going to say, you go girl, you look beautiful. They're going to get that positive affirmation from that. The guys that see that are going to go, you're so beautiful, man. What are you doing tonight? How can I get in touch with you? What's your premium Snapchat? Yeah. How do I get in touch with you, kind of thing? Or can I buy a jar of your bathwater, please?
Well, that attention thing you're talking about is important too, because that ties into something we want to talk about a little bit later here with self-sabotaging things they do. Mm-hmm. Jealousy. Women, in the women who tell you they're not jealous are oftentimes the most jealous. They want all of your attention. God forbid you give any of it to someone else, because it doesn't matter. I mean, you could give her 20-fold. If you turn around and give somebody else one, okay, she's going to be jealous of that one because it wasn't with her. Right. It doesn't make sense, but it's just that's how powerful the attention, or how important the attention is to her, that it triggers that jealousy. Somebody else got one that I didn't get, even though I've got 20.
Right. Well, yep.
What was that? Your audio went out on me there. Hello, we are waiting. Looks like it's just me. How's everybody doing this afternoon? We are waiting for Rollo Tomasi. He's got the controls. He got disconnected. We're looking for him. My name is Pat Campbell, radio talk show host from Tulsa, Oklahoma. And you're watching The Rational Male 101, Women's Egos, Solipsism in the Age of Social Media.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I was talking to myself there for a while.
Yeah, sorry. I'm still working out the bugs in this new.
Your voice went on a loop.
Apologize. Oh, did it? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, anyways, I'm back right now. No, when we talk about attention, when we're talking about it's a cute joke to say, hey, look, attention is the coin of the realm in girl world, but it really is. So, and there's different gradations or variations, I should say, of what attention is more valuable than others. So when a woman says, oh, that guy's a creep, his attention is lower in value, obviously, than a guy that she wants to have sex with, or who instantly presents himself as somebody that she wants to get with. So we can see that happen in live time. So there's definitely degrees of attention that is more valuable than other parts. So if that's the case, how about attention that comes from girls, from their peer group? What is that worth? What is worth more attention? Is the attention of like Chris Hemsworth more valuable than just the average Joe? I would say so. Yes. So there's that self-evaluation, or building yourself up from a solipsistic. Remember, because women are solipsistic. So from that solipsistic perspective, how do you feed that solipsism? Well, through attention. That's how we decide. Like, when women are in their own kind of like their peer clutch, when they're in their group, the collect. I call for all women, I call it the sisterhood. But like, there's individual peer clutches where women might have a social network in this day, you know, because of their digital consciousness, they might have a global social network. But when they're living together, or when they're like in real time, a woman might have anywhere between 12 and 24 like close personal friends like that are in like that would like be somebody who she would compete for attention within that group. So in that group, her pecking order is established by how much attention she can get. So like my daughter, for example, like when my daughter was in high school, I told her this. I said, look, when you get into like, you got girlfriends right now, when you get into to high school and then again into college, women are going to be catty with you. They're going to be jealous of you because you're a beautiful girl. So the girls who don't generate the same kind of attention that you do are going to want to stab you in the back. They're going to be the ones who are going to want to take you down, or they're going to find some way to knock you down in the hierarchy of attention. And so, you know, explaining, she understands that, of course. And so I think girls who are a little bit more real are the ones who can balance that out and understand the game that they're in. And the ones who are more superficial are the ones who play along with it. And like, you know, like the mean girls, you know, the girls who just go with it. And that becomes who they're all about, is just that competition for attention. So when you were talking about your daughter who was insulted by like the way she looked, and she carried that and held on to that for a very long time, the reason is because that sexual market value that she has, she's conflated that with a sense of self, but also understand that that is a knock to her in the pecking order of that social collective of the peer group of women.
By the way, here's the kicker with this. Okay, so this happened to her in 6th grade, right? I didn't find out about it until she's 21.
And she's still hanging on to it.
All the time she's carrying this, gee, why didn't you let me know when you were in 6th grade or 7th grade? Could have helped you out. And again, to get fixated, you know, first of all, school's an artificial environment. Never again you lump together with people that you have nothing in common with except your age, right? And two, I don't talk to anybody I went to grade school or high school with. I don't go back to reunions. There's like maybe 2 people from high school that I still, you know, talk to. But everybody else, like, you're dead to me. I don't care about you.
I think men have an easier way I think women hang on to their friends, the ones that they hang on to them longer. But I think men have a capacity to make friends a little bit easier than women do. So they might have a few friends. They might not have that. So, but they have the connections with like maybe 2 or 3 guys. Now I was just reading this research, and they were saying something about like, why are people so depressed right now? Why is this the most depressed generation there is? And one of the questions they were asked in this research was, how many close personal friends do you have that you can go meet face to face right now? And if you had a problem, could you talk to? Could you actually have some sort of, and like, I think it was like 95% of the guys said none. 0, not like 1, not 3, 0, none. And I thought that was really interesting because like I have some good close personal friends. I think I probably have about 4 people, four guys I could probably go to right now. But I have other guys that I hang out with that are part of like separate tribes that I belong to. Like there's the guys at the game store, the guys I go sledding with, or the guys I do music with, that kind of stuff. I have a lot of little individual tribes, but amongst those tribes, I might have one person in that tribe that I would consider like a really close personal friend that I have stuck with for more than 20 years.
Real quick here, a buddy of mine who was a mentor, Joe, I'll just use his first name, had a great definition. And I've got a very high standard for what constitutes as a real friend, genuine friend. And like you, I can count them on one hand and have a couple fingers left over. But first and foremost, trust and loyalty. But Joe used to say a friend is the kind of person you can call up and say, hey, I got a body to get rid of. And the guy says, I'll be over with the car. No questions asked. That's a friend.
That's a friend. Yeah. Like, what do you like? Who's gonna when I talk about when guys always say, well, how do I vet for a good wife? And I've always said this is that you need to find a woman who trusts you with her life. So if you said that to your woman, if you said that to your wife, you said, I got a body to bury, I need you to come here. What would she do? Right? Somebody had sent me this picture. Sent me this story about this girl who was like what we would call a ride or die girl. Right? She's always the hell yes girl, and she's with you no matter what. There was this one guy who got arrested, and he was in the back of some like a patrol car, and the cop was signing something out, and the girlfriend was there kind of crying, and she jumped into the car and drove off with the patrol car with the guy in the back to get away from all of this stuff. That's the kind of girl that you want to know about genuine desire. that's the girl that you want to marry right there.
It's a committed woman right there.
Yes. Yes. So anyway, what was the one last thing we were going to get to today? Did we have a bonus? We had a bonus, didn't we?
Yeah, but we also got to get to the questions here. Oh, why? Oh, women.
Yeah, we'll get to
women self-sabotage.
Mm-hmm.
Things that women do to self-sabotage. You had a couple you were going to throw out. What were you going to put out there?
Well, I think that a lot of women, see, here's the thing is like, when I say women self-sabotage, is it because they have like a personal responsibility, or are they like, it's something promote them or push them into self-sabotage, or are they just doing that because of their nature, right? So if I say, well, women will never do anything, like for the feminism teaches women never do anything for the express pleasure of a man. Well, geez, wouldn't it be great if like they didn't get that message, and maybe they wanted to show their appreciation. Maybe they turned into a ride or die girl, and they find a guy, you know, at a you know, in their mid-20s, and they say, hey, you know what, this guy might be the guy that God has ordained for me. And instead of having that that idea that you never do anything for a man, show some appreciation. Do something like just that has, you know, push off that solipsism. I think that's another thing I need to clear up here about solipsism. All women are solipsistic, just like all women are hypergamous, but that doesn't mean that that's a straitjacket. That doesn't mean that women can't overcome that. So when I say women are solipsistic, they'll say, well, I'm Mother Teresa and I go work with the homeless and I run a soup line and I work in the homeless shelter. That doesn't mean I'm solipsistic. Yeah, because you have learned, you've learned something in your software and your social learning. Maybe it was your family, maybe it was something you read, maybe something affected you in life that has allowed you to tamp down the worst parts of your innate nature. So when women say, well, I'm not hypergamous, I was in a arranged marriage, I'm like, yeah, because you had your hypergamous nature overridden for you. So so when women say, well, I'm not hypergamous because my man suffers from cancer and I've been with him through thick and thin, I go, yeah, well, first of all, you had to get to the point where you found him attractive enough to want to pair up with him. Yeah. And then second of all, you've learned something along the way to help you be in control of the worst aspects of your hypergamous nature. So, hey, good. Kudos to you, man. I'm glad you were like that. And I'm glad you're able to do that. It doesn't negate the fact that your operating temperature, your operating condition are hypergamy and are solipsism. So the same thing for guys. It's like guys have left to our own devices. We would like to have unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. Well, we can't build a cohesive society if every guy's walking around with a heart on all the time. Mm-hmm. So we have to teach our boys to have self-control and to act pro-socially. I don't think we're doing that with women right now. So when we talk about self-sabotage, a lot of it is because we don't teach women how to self-regulate, how to self-police. And I think we've been doing that since the sexual revolution. We expect them to. We want to say, okay, ladies, you're hypergamous, but we're going to give you the keys to the car and you self-police and you make sure that you buffer all the worst aspects of your nature. Well, they're not going to do that, especially when we're teaching them to be self-important.
Here's the two and they go together: insecurity and jealousness. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I put a quote up here from Robert, who was it? Heinlein. So it's funny because we were talking about the 7 deadly sins with Dr. Piper, and also I had another guest on the program, Jim Stovall. One of the things I can honestly tell you is I'm not jealous. I'm not envious. It was only one time in my life where I was really envious. It was my first girlfriend. I was 16. Beautiful blonde. Her parents came from Germany. She was an only child. She had everything her heart could desire. Mm-hmm. Here I am. At the time, I think we had 11 kids in the family. And she comes over to my house and she's jealous of me. She envies me. Why? Because I have brothers and sisters. She wishes she had brothers and sisters. At that time, I'm looking at her situation. I'm going, gee, I wish I didn't have brothers and sisters. And my parents gave me all these wonderful gifts. Okay. But other than that, I'm just not that kind of guy. Although, I double down on some of the other ones, particularly lust. But here's a comment here. It says, a competent and self-confident person is incapable of jealousy in anything. And they say that jealousy, listen to this, jealousy is invariably a symptom of neurotic insecurity. So if a person's insecure, they tend to be jealous. Even if they tell you they're not, they just by the very nature, if you're filled with a lot of self-doubt, if you've been beaten down, either by partners, parents, whatever, society in general, you're going to be the kind of person that tends to be jealous. And the two go together. They're inseparable.
Yeah. And again, that's what's the, I think there's another, I don't know if this is a saying or whatever, but I know that like for people who tend to be more like creative people, they have, they don't get as bored as like, say, people who are less creative people. And so there's like sort of that nature that goes along with it. So if you're a creative person, is that going to predispose you more to jealousy, or is that not, because you're going to want something that somebody else has built up, right? And you're going to want that. Well, if you have the capacity to build something similar or to build something better, are you going to be jealous? You got to go, no, it's like, I'm going to use that as inspiration. What's the difference between jealousy and inspiration is what I'm saying.
The other thing that I see that sabotages relationships for women is they're constantly questioning themselves. So overanalyzing the relationship, becoming obsessed with it. If it doesn't match up to what you think the ideal is supposed to be, if there's something that's not, quite there, and thinking too far down the road, it's the overanalyzing, it can kill, it will not kill you, but it'll kill the relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I wanted to get to a couple of other things here.
Yeah, we want to get into the questions too from the
listeners. We'll get to. I promise we'll get to. Okay. Gosh, we got a lot of super chats here. So
there was one that was 200 NOK. What is that?
That is Norwegian K dollars. I don't know exactly.
What's it worth?
I got, what, your guess is as good as mine. I'm going to have to one of these days have some sort of like translation or some kind of conversion thing. Oh, yay. Thank you very much. Practical female supporting the rational male. Yay. Let's see. Oh, the other thing I wanted to okay, we talked about Aubrey's thing. You had this one post today, and I just want to throw this out there because I will be sad if I don't do this. Let me put this on here. There it is. So this is a post that you put out, and I'll just read it here really quick. You said the Red Pill 101 thing here. Yeah, this one. A woman's love is always conditional. She will love you as long as it benefits her or something better comes along. Women are incapable of loving a man or loving the same way that a man does. Okay, that is. I'm glad you put me on that. This is probably one of the most misquoted things that I get right now, because I say something to the effect that men and women have differing concepts of love, and they do. But
very different.
But what happens is men tend to think that I am saying that women cannot love you. They're incapable of love. And that's false. And what I say, if you look at it, I think it's iron rule number 6. I say that women are fundamentally lack the capacity to love a man in the way that man believes that she should be able to love him. Right. So what I always say is that because women are innately hypergamous, that their capacity to love, or their concept of love, derives from a sense of opportunism. They won't get into a relationship. They won't allow themselves to have emotional investment with a guy that doesn't at least in some way pass the hypergamous filter. The guy has to check off some of those boxes before she will allow herself to become intimate with that guy. Whereas men tend to hold on to something that's more like idealism. Men tend to be more idealistic than women. We want to think, what can we affect our will upon? So when we think of love, we think of it in the terms of love should be just, love should exist just for the sake of love. So because we want to see what is possible. Dr. Stephen Peker said, that in some of his talks about gender differences is that women tend to be more focused on people and men tend to be more focused on things. And as a result of that, because we want to see what's in the outside world, we see a river and we will say, I wonder what that would look like with a bridge across it. That idealism gets transferred over into our concept of love. And I think that in our blue pill conditioning, we're taught that that women share that same idealism, and they don't. So their concepts, and it's not to say that men and women can't love each other. They do. They just love each other from different perspectives. Right. So when those cross over, then you have a really good marriage. Then you have a really good relationship. So
when I put that up immediately, and it was women that started this. So you're saying that men love unconditionally? No, I didn't say that. No. You're reading stuff into my words. By the way, there are guys that love unconditionally. In fact, we had that. Remember the one guy that called into my program? His wife cheated on him 4 times. He still wouldn't give her a divorce. She had to divorce him.
Yeah, I keep getting, and I'm going to have to either write a post about this or do some sort of Twitter thread, but I keep getting in my DMs this story about this guy who was divorced from his wife in Saudi Arabia because he wouldn't he was too perfect a husband. Right. He wouldn't fight with her. He would go and do the dishes without being asked. He was too much like a wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I have got this at least a dozen times right now. And I'm like, well, yeah, the reason for that is the reason she has a problem with him is because perfect is boring. Women need that conflict. They need some sort of challenge in their guy. They don't want the guy they don't want to marry themselves. They want to marry a guy.
48 laws of power. Robert Greene, never appear too perfect.
Too perfect. Yep. So I put that back. So I wanted to throw that out there because I think in a sense it sort of relates to what we're talking about here. What is that when women and men come together, they have they're coming from separate perspectives, but I think women believe that men understand her concept of love, and men believe that women understand his concept of love. And so when you have that when you have a conflict between the two of them, men don't understand the nature of women. Women think they understand the nature of men. And so we get these romantic comedies, we get these romance stories, and they're all founded around a male concept of love, whereas women are only sign on with that kind of concept of love when the guy passes that hypergamous filter. So you get like the Beauty and the Beast thing where he's perfect. I want to fall in love with him. I like the idea of idealistic love, but he has to be a beast. He has to be the guy that has a challenge that I can change and turn him into the handsome prince. And so that, I mean, we can go on forever about that.
Right, real quick here, I'm just looking at my local newspaper. Headline: Woman accused of making children eat dog feces receives a sentence. Guess how long her sentence is?
6 months. Probation.
Hold on. 7-year suspended sentence. Nothing.
Zero.
Nothing.
Wow.
And if that was a guy, you'd be doing the full 7, and I'd throw on another just for good luck.
Yeah, just for doing it. And then we talk about this all the time. There are separate standards of justice for women, and that's there. Here you go. Here's another. And what I love when I get into arguments with women who say there's no separate standard of justice, and I can show article after article after article that there actually are. You want to move on to let's move on to comments?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And I apologize to anybody that I don't get to here. We actually have quite a few. Sam Whiskey 499 says, "Why do women view my small business as a competition?" I'm going to make a few presumptions here because I think this is what you're talking about. Women will see if you have a distinct mission in life, if you have ambition, if you have a dream, if you have maybe that dream is to start your own business. What happens is when I tell guys, I say, a woman should never be the focus of your life. She should only be a complement to it. Well, what happens is when your focus in life becomes the other woman, that the woman who is with you tends to become more jealous of that, or she tends to have a problem with you being at work all the time, or you focusing only on your business. She will see that as intrasexual competition coming from what. There's no other woman, but your attention, the attention that she won't remember. Attention is a coin of the Roman girl world. That attention that she wants to be getting from you is being focused and channeled somewhere else. That's why she sees you as sees that as competition. TJD 499, thank you, says, "Is a woman's sexual physical attraction more important in today's day and age than her actual ability to perform a skill?" So I think what you're saying is like, is her looks like, I think what you're talking about here is like, will guys, like most guys will do this. They'll hire a woman based on her looks rather than like the kind of like her job performance or maybe her job experience. And in a way, I think yes, because we tend to hire, or we tend to want to be associated with more attractive people rather than less attractive people. So if you've got a guy that is interviewing for a job and the guy is like 50 pounds overweight, and you got another guy who looks like he works out and is of a regular weight, that guy is going to be selected over the other guy if they have similar skills, simply because we, like you said before, we want to see that. We tend to judge a book by its cover, first of all, but we want to be around symmetry. We want to be around harmony. We want to be around we want to be around a beautiful person rather than a non-beautiful person. So that's a guy. Now, how do we transfer that, or how do we compare that in terms of women? Like, is her sexuality is her physical attraction more important than her skills. I think it kind of depends on what is she gonna do. I think I was reading a story this morning about some lesbian astronaut who was convicted of a crime because she was trying to do identity fraud of her wife.
Spouse,
yeah, her ex-spouse from space.
That's cool, man. That's cool.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what does the way she look make any difference to what she's doing? Probably not, but there is always going to be, particularly because attention is the coin of the Roman girl world, because of that attention factor. Men are going to want to, of course, be around more attractive women. And I think that maybe it is a hindrance if you are a beautiful woman and say the women in HR are the ones who are doing the hiring. They might feel threatened by you. They might feel threatened because the attention will be on that attractive woman rather than on themselves. Philip, $5. Rolo, I know this is a bit off topic. Great. But would you please hit on Me Too and explain rationally what it has become? A buffer against betas. Yes, it has.
Weaponized.
You and I talked about exactly this on Friday morning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go listen to that. Yes, definitely. I think the conversation you and I had was that I never really believed that Me Too was intended to be about sexual harassment or anything like that. I think it was only the reason we're still talking about it in 2019, and it's been going on since at least 2017, maybe 2016. And understand that the hashtag Me Too has existed since 2006. So why are we talking about it now? Well, because I think that the village, the feminine imperative, the left-leaning thought sees Me Too as the weapon that it was always meant to be, which is if we can find some way to remove statutes of limitations, if we can find some way to use this to bring powerful men down, then we're going to have to find, if powerful men are going to be subject to Me Too, then we've got to make it subject to other men as well. Now, I've said this, maybe people have heard this and maybe they haven't, but because we are statistically right now, divorce rates are plummeting. Of course, the reason that they're plummeting is because marriage rates are plummeting. So less people getting married, less people getting divorced. Well, because less people are getting divorced, there still has to be a means of transfer of wealth or transfer of resources from men to women in an age where women they're in the workforce, they can make their own damn money. They've taken care, the beta buck side of hypergamy is already taken care of for them, but they still need a more direct way to do that. It used to be that divorce was the way that women, was it the most rich women in the world? I think it's of the 50 most rich women in the world, I think 47 of them became rich either through divorce or through inheriting that money. And that's according to Forbes or Fortune 500 or something like that. So now that you're taking away divorce, we've got to replace that with something. So it's an easy payday for a woman to go online and say, Rollo Tomasi raped me. I want some money. Give me some money. And you want to make this go away? It's not about the court of law anymore. It's about the court of social media. And as we know throughout the rest of this conversation, that social media is something that women are very adept at, and they understand the reach and the power of social media has. And even if you are exonerated entirely, the fact that you were accused is enough to ruin your life.
Always there. They never,
ruin your college.
When you're accused of something, it doesn't matter if you're found innocent. If you're exonerated in any way. That's always going to be the back of people say, "Oh, he's the sex offender." Mm-hmm. Remember him in the news?
Yeah.
They remember the headline.
And just to answer Philip's last question here is it a buffer against betas? Yes, it is, because beta. What it is it's sort of this deterrent that says, beta males, you should know not to approach me, because if you do, it's possible that you could be hit with a Me Too charge. Right. I will accuse you of sexual harassment if you don't look like Chris Evans. If you don't look hot, you should know. If you know that you don't look hot, you should also know not to approach me, because if you do, I will file Me Too charges and it will ruin your life, even if it's a false claim. Let's see. C Palm says,
you take the next one. I want to take the one after that, though.
All right. Okay. C Palm says $5. In my experience at work, married women are way more flirty versus single women. Your thoughts? I don't know. It's been a while since I've been in the private sector, but I think you're probably right. And it's usually women who are in what, if you read my second book, there's this part in there where I talk about making up for missing out. And it's for women who have been married for a certain amount of time. And it's usually right before they hit about 40, like right around 37 to 39 years old, somewhere in there. And they become extra flirty, or there's something in their subconscious that predisposes them to be a little bit more flirty with, and where are they going to do that? They're already in the workforce. So they're away from their husband. They're in the workplace. That's the easiest place for them to be. It's like the American workforce with women in it is almost like a new, it's like going back to high school again. And it's particularly bad for women who already have an adolescent social skill set. So yeah, I do see that. And I think that the reason for that is it's usually the only place that they can express that, because they don't want to do it with their husbands. They flirting with their husbands is old news.
They feel they're safe.
Yeah, they feel that. Yeah, exactly. They feel they're safe, and that's another reason why I think a lot of guys are. And to get back to the first question, or the question before this, men are they're not fearful, but they're concerned about any kind of extracurricular activities with women in the workplace right now. So you've got men who are shying away, who don't want to protect themselves, because it's just pragmatism. It's men saying, okay, if those are the rules, then I don't want to have anything to do with you outside of work and what we have to do. And then you have women that are flirty, and they treat the workplace as if it's like junior high school or high school. Right. You have an even worse situation. So, okay, go ahead. Take
the next one. What advice would you give your red pill son, 35, who seeks a wife and kids? First of all, I would say, number one, why does he want to get married? Okay. Mm-hmm. Why does he want to get married? Number two, I would say choose carefully, very carefully. I'd go at least 10 years younger. Myself, if I was in that particular situation, mm-hmm. I'd find a woman who understands the relationship has to be complementary. Mm-hmm. In other words, and that somebody's going to be dominant and she's going to be submissive. Somebody that sort of fits, I guess, the traditional role of femininity. She understands what it means to be the wife. And of course, you would want her to have kids too. I mean, if that's what you're really getting into that for, Mm-hmm. But man, I would pick so carefully. I would thoroughly vet mm-hmm. anybody before I put a ring on it.
And he's got a second part to this too. He says, what would you tell him? Would you tell him to seek a wife and kids? Because he says, I see Roosh V trying at 40. It's a nightmare. 3 to 4 years, and it's bachelor mode here on. So when I say that the peak sexual market value age range for men is anywhere between, like, say, let's just say 34 and like 37, somewhere in that stretch. That's when guys it's sort of shit or get off the pot kind of time for them. They've got to figure out what it is that they're going to do, and they're in a better position, I think, to make to be more sexually selective. So you got a guy who's, like, say, 24 years old, and he's, maybe he's enjoying women who are in their party years, but their priorities are not going to be the same as when he's, like, say, 34, 35, 36 years old. And that's why I say that when guys get to that point, if you've maximized your best potential, you are going to be in a position where you can be more sexually selective, and hopefully you're red pill enough to understand the nature of women, and you could make better choices at that point. Now, here's what you're going to say. You're going to say, I can't find any quality women. All these women have baggage. All these, by that time, all the women who are my peer age are single mommies. And it's like, yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. That's why I agree with Pat. If you're going to start looking for something in the long term, you need to look for women that are younger than you, who don't have the baggage or as much baggage as women who would be in your peer group. When I listen, and I'll listen probably tomorrow, when I listen to Rich Cooper and he does his Before the Trainwreck show, he gets the same caller all the time. It's always the same caller. It's like, I'm a 35-year-old man, and I'm stuck right now because I'm in a relationship with a woman who is a single mommy with 2 kids from 2 different fathers, and she's 39 and I'm 27. Like, why on earth how is that even, like, in the realm of possibility? How did you get to that point? Well, now, like think about that from a guy who's like 27 years old. If you get to be, like, say, what he's saying, 35 here, the best advice I can tell you is to look for somebody that is going to be younger than you, that has the least amount of baggage. And the women are out there. You just have to be the guy that's gonna, you have to be the one who has a good judge of character and see all that. And that's really easy for me to say, but
if you're 40, okay, and you're looking for somebody who's 40, female that's 40, if you find somebody that hasn't been married, that doesn't have kids, there's a reason for that. That's why I'm telling you, there's a reason, okay? Because otherwise, she would have been selected by this point. Even there at 40, you got to go at least 10 years younger.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, I just want to add this one here real quick. Chris B in Philly just gave us $5. Thanks, brother. And then Ibo, last one. Okay. Why do men get one-itis when male strategy is to spread the seed? Okay. Why they see similarities with that girl, which are not even there. How is this helpful to evolution? It's a counterproductive spreading of the seeds. Yes, it is, isn't it? Like I said before, men's natural, like if there's a female imperative, the male imperative is it's unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. And that again, the reason why pornography is so popular is because that's our baseline. Now we learn to control those things. We learn, there are some men who are higher SMV, and there's some men that are lower SMV. The higher SMV men can do that. They can go and explore multiple women. They can spin plates. They can have a soft harem because it comes naturally for them, because either they're good looking or they've got something else, or affluent, whatever. They've got something going on. But for the vast majority of men, 85% of men, they can't do that because they are of the lower sexual market value. They have to follow a different sexual, or I should say different mating strategy than men who have a greater facility to follow their natural, spreading of the seeds. So for men, and this is called strategic pluralism theory, is where I'm going with this. So men who are of a lower sexual market value have to put all of their eggs in one basket. They have to believe in monogamy. Monogamy, as we know it, socially enforced monogamy, it serves the interests of the greater whole of men. So if there's one guy, like I was talking about, the guy who's the higher sexual market value guy, if that guy is if he has 5 wives, that means 4 guys don't have a wife and they won't reproduce. It means that one guy will, but the other guys won't. Under socially enforced monogamy, where we say it should only ever be one man with one woman, what that does is it benefits the guys who wouldn't otherwise get laid, who wouldn't otherwise have a family. So monogamy, social learned post-agrarian monogamy, served the greater whole. It served the greater whole of, for lack of a better term, beta males. And I see that changing a lot right now, post-sexual revolution, but it served their interests. So in a monogamous, a socially enforced monogamous society, it is productive. It is because more guys were getting laid, more guys were reproducing. So why would it then, why do men get one-itis when it's to spread the seed? Because the guys who are more prone to one-itis tend to be, believe in the soulmate myth, tend to be more beta, because they don't have access. They know, if a guy is a natural and he's getting laid all the time and he's got a soft harem, he's not going to question those things. He's going to be far less likely to focus and fixate on one woman than if he were a guy who doesn't have those sexual opportunities. And so his mating strategy is sort of one-on-one. So, but that's a mating strategy. That's something that you've got to learn to reproduce, because reproduction is a biological imperative. So how am I going to do that? Well, it means I got to have sex with fat chicks. Well, if you want to reproduce, you got to have sex with fat chicks. If you want to reproduce, does that mean I got to focus on one girl? Well, for you, probably that's true. I know you would like to, because pornography is so popular right now, but if you want to reproduce, you're going to have to play a game that maybe you don't want to play. So that's what I'm going to say about that. I think that was it. That was our last one, wasn't it?
I think so.
Cool. All right, man. This has been a very enlightening show.
Smash the like button.
Yes, please do. I'm going to go up here and I am going to throw on Pat Campbell at Twitter, PC 1170. If you want to get in touch with Pat on Twitter, that's where you can get in touch with him. We are both going to be on Friday at 9:05 Eastern, the Pat Campbell Show. And our Tulsa Comes to Talk. See, I've got your lingo down now. Comes to listen. Yeah. And of course, my link is right there, The Rational Male. I'm really loving StreamYard. I want to give them a big shout out too. I also need to throw this one out there as well. This is one of our sponsors. This is Aaron Clary, The Curse of the High IQ. And I need to put his banner on as well, don't I? There we go. That's where you can find his book. What's that?
You read that one yet?
No, I have not. I've read Bachelor Pad Economics, which is a very thick book. I have not read Curse of the High IQ, but now I guess I'm going to have to, because that's the one he's pushing right now. So
is it available on Audible?
That is available. I believe it's available on Audible, and it is also available, of course, on Amazon. So there is your plug for that today.
You like smart women? Are you attracted to smart women, or are you intimidated by them?
Who, me?
I'm asking you because we get this in talk radio.
Yeah, am I intimidated? Okay, when people ask, God damn it, okay, you ready to go for another half an hour? Here we go. No, I was gonna say is when we talk about intelligence in women, it's not a prime directive. I mean, it's nice to have someone who can carry on a conversation. Men tend to select mostly for beauty, but interesting how you said that, though, which is, are you intimidated by intelligent women? No, I'm not intimidated by intelligent women. But because you ask it in that way, right, it means that it implies that I should, like, there are men somewhere that are intimidated by intelligent women. It's like, no, they're not. They just want to get with the hottest piece of ass that they can get with. If she happens to be smart, that's icing on the cake. So anyway, so that's our show for today. Do you have anything else going on?
Next week we got to hit that. Can women fake desire, genuine desire?
Yes. Yeah, I think that'll be good. We can preface. That'll be the topic for next week. Can women fake desire will be our next one, and maybe we can talk a little bit about genuine desire and how to identify genuine desire. Thank you guys for watching. I am going to be doing an AMA this week. It will most likely be on Tuesday or Wednesday, so watch my channel for that. It'll just be like a Q&A. You guys can ask me stuff. I might have Aubrey Huff on my show at some point. I will be doing Rule Zero once again on Saturday, this coming Saturday. Set your alarms. It's going to be on Rich Cooper's channel, and we're going to talk about vetting women. Remember how Rich Cooper put out that one tweet about that got him into trouble about all the things that he thought women should do. Same thing with, I think it was Ryan did something, or was it Ryan or someone else did a similar one. So yeah, AJ did a similar one as well. So we're going to be talking about that on Saturday. That is 11:30 a.m. Eastern on Saturday on Rich Cooper's channel. And then always come here 4:30 Eastern for The Rational Male with myself, Raul Tomasi, and Pat Campbell. So thank you guys. We will see you again next week.
I am out.